Good morning, guys. Hope all is good and welcome back to the weekly-ish vlog. So yeah, it's been a little bit of time. Last time you'd seen me on YouTube here, obviously part of the podcast, was in Newcastle. I came back from Newcastle, I was coming back from Newcastle on the Monday morning, woke up and felt absolutely rotten. I think it picked up a sort of virus stomach bug, and let's just say the first couple of days of last week was pretty rough, to say the least. So it was a good weekend in Newcastle. The seminar and that went well. But coming back, definitely I did not feel good. So I went there at £226, had a good few training sessions in there, ate well, got my meals in, and then was just vomiting and everything else for a couple of days. So my body weight was down on Wednesday to 214. So I dropped, 12 over those couple of days. So the back end of last week was really spent trying to get food back in, trying to rehydrate. I'd done a couple of deload sessions at the back end of the week there, and I want to try and get on it from Monday again, and really get moving forward with it. Done a decent job. I feel a little bit more, I feel much more back to myself now. Weight this morning was just over £223, so most of the damage that was done from being ill last week is kind of back, and we're good to get moving again. But yeah, it's been difficult. Obviously, I think with anybody that comes out of a prep and then they're into their off season, everyone talks about this little dip you have. Some people have it immediately post show, some a week or two in. For me, I was kind of feeling that sort of little bit lower, those dips coming the last couple of weeks, which was surprising to me. I sort of thought I got out of the woods and got away with it, but you never really do. I'm gonna say a little bit of a dip. I think mentally I was a little bit lower, and I'm always very, very open and honest in this. I just felt like I just really didn't feel myself, a little bit more sluggish, a little bit less motivated. And hey, we're all human, we all want to be these big hardcore bodybuilders, but yeah, I 100% needed to kind of reset things a little bit as well. And I think the large reason of that is really when I come out, lessons learned. I come out of prep, full bore, really going for it. I booked, multiple weekends away. Obviously, I had Galway, I had Newcastle, I was away in Tenerife. I was away at different gyms and weekends, and never really gave myself and my body or my mind for the most part a chance to rest. It was coming out, podcast, everything else, and trying to take the world on. Where in reality, I probably should have a little bit of a break and a little bit of a week or so, even after the shows, where I just let myself sort of decondense a little bit, if that is a word. So last week probably worked as a bit of the silver lining to it was it forced me really to kind of stand back a little bit. And to be honest, now sleep is in a far better place, easily sleeping 8 hours a night. So that wasn't happening beforehand. So I feel like everything is back to normal. We're back to scratch as well. Even the last couple of weeks, my knees, which has plagued me honestly for the last 5 years. Sounds like I'm just complaining here, but for the last 5 years they were really playing up. So I have to sat back last week when I had the time and just reassess my training, reassess where things are actually at and what I can do to move forward with it. Because even a couple of years ago, the doctors have said that I shouldn't be bodybuilding. The knees are kind of degrading a little bit, where I was able to find a way to train, relatively pain-free and still improve my legs, albeit not to the place that I want to improve them. But my enjoyment was just, if I can get in the gym and feel like I'm progressing, then I'm happy. So had to really stand back there last week and think, right, how can I train this lower body? And today is lower body day, so I'm going to show you basically a day in the life today. For online coaching, I'll go through my leg session, go through my meals as well, but I'm going to do a lot and slowing every movement down to the nth degree. And trust me, over the past few years, I've tried every which way to train my lower half. But we're going back to what I know is going to work to some degree. Even if it's not maximizing progress, it's getting as much progress out of that movement as I can. So that is the plan today. So it is now 7 o'clock, was in bed for 10, so another very, very good sleep. So definitely feeling more refreshed with things. Start my morning off with obviously some caffeine, and then my morning supplementation, which I showed just a little bit before we started talking here. I got really big into my supplementation and health side of things with bodybuilding. As we know, bodybuilding is not necessarily the most healthy pursuit, especially now that I am back on cycle. So I've made big steps this year to make sure that blood work remains good, my body stays fresh, and it also just appeases that side of me that there is always that worry of okay, what am I doing to myself here? So, and that's just the reality of it. So every morning I'm using Elevate supplements, and I do highly recommend them. So I've got omega-3s, so high-grade fish oil, vitamin D3 and K2. These are all good sort of fat sources as well. I have the cholesterol management one, I have organ support, I have turmeric and curcumin, which is very good anti-inflammatory products as well. I'm currently using vitamin P5P, just in terms of regulating progesterone, prolactin, and I'm using oral BPC 157. Now, I'm using that from a gut health standpoint. There's a lot of research into it being very, very good for digestion and inflammation around the gut. And my stomach, bar last week, to be fair, has been very, very good. And I'm also currently on T4 at 100 micrograms, which I'll be using throughout my off season because I am using growth hormone at 6 IU per day, split 2 in the morning, 2 post workout, and then 2 before bed. And then I have recently got this little pen, so it's injectable BP 157, and this is for the knees and for the joints, and it's TB 500 in it as well. So this is I've only started this and I got it and I thought, right, well, we'll give this a go because, see, to be honest with you, like, it nearly comes down to laziness when it comes to actually making the peptides up and putting them in. So I'm going to try this out. And I've seen when I've had muscle tears in the past and I've used the injectable form of BPC and TB 500, I've seen some pretty good results. So I'm hoping that with some more physio, with massage, which I actually get weekly, with stretching, which I do daily, and the supplementation, and the change up in training, and the injectable BPC 157, that I will be able to sort of train my legs more effectively. So that is the plan. That is the hope anyway. So yes, today will be legs on the agenda. So I'll tend to try and get like a couple of litres of water in me before my first meal. I'll run through my first meal here as well, and then I will be doing all my sort of online check-ins, and those tend to last anywhere sort of from 2.5 to 3 hours in the morning. I'll then train, and then I'll go through my afternoon responses and any like form videos as well. So it's not like with online coaching, it's not this like 9 to 5 job, but you're kind of constantly at it. But I think it's so important to kind of set aside like little work blocks in your day, set your environment up as well. I find, especially because like this in bodybuilding, you have to be self-motivated. When you're online coaching, you have to be incredibly self-motivated, and a lot of it's by yourself. So you need to find ways of creating an environment that dictates your work, your effort, and your success with it. So I try and put myself in my office, say, put the phone away, no Instagram, 2 or 3 hours doing that, get a social media post up, and then I can kind of get, like, my head is then clear to go and do some training. So yes, you will see my day to day. So what I found is, like, when I get deeper into an off season, and I'm not that deep yet, I think I am now 9 weeks post show, but it feels like a lifetime ago prep, to be honest with you, is that sometimes your routine can start to slip a little bit. And in the past, I've been guilty of continuing to let that routine slip. So, maybe doing check-ins when I'm sitting on the sofa, not going out and doing my morning walks, like letting those habits and routines slip. And ultimately that starts to play in my mind a little bit. I'm someone in the past that has definitely struggled with anxiety, and I'm quite happy and open to talk about that. It's something that I have talked about in the past. And what I try and do now is like, and this sounds corny and very, very cheesy, but I'll wake up in the morning once I've had my supplements and my water and my coffee, and my head's a little bit fresher, and do a little bit of a gratitude log. And it's something like I'll implement from time to time. I don't do it all the time. For months maybe I won't need to. I don't feel the need to. As of recent, I felt the need to kind of recenter myself and zen a little bit as well. And I do find it very much helps. I'm a big fan and an advocate of actually writing things down. You'll see through it that whole prep, even now, I have my whiteboard up. So it's my vision board and my daily tasks to do for that day. And every morning I'll update that because it kind of holds me accountable to myself, which is that's the only person you have to be really accountable to is yourself. So I find writing that down, I'm somebody that responds well to that, not just noting it in my head, but seeing it in front of me every day. Well, then I need to go and do that and act on that. And the same as the gratitude log, waking up and trying to put yourself in a positive mindset, because when you do get those feelings on that anxiety, which is meals we don't like talking about, but I certainly am happy to talk about it. Like I get that from time to time, and at certain points I will find that grows a little bit more, and that can snowball. So this gratitude log is something I do, and it's like I'll write down 3 things that I'm happy to do, or I'm looking forward to in that day, or I'm proud of myself for. Again, sounds incredibly cheesy, but once you see it in front of you, once you kind of train your mindset to think like that, it can set you up to be much more positive. Like even doing this vlog today, I thought, right, get up, do the vlog, let's get moving forward with things again as well. And then again, I'll write what I need to do for that day. So I find that very, very much helps before I even go into my check-ins, because I go into that check-in much more positive, much more enthusiastic, and just ready to go and get after it. And the thing is now, we are 5 weeks into this health phase. We've got the bloods back. Bloods look in a good spot. As we said, there's a couple of things that we need to sort of be a little bit more aware of here now as well, now that we've kind of got those blood markers back. In terms of like all your profiles, in terms of like red blood cell count, all very, very good. Liver and kidney enzymes are in a fantastic spot as well. So this is all a good sign moving forward. The one thing we do need to watch out for, which again, like most anabolic users will need to keep an eye on for the most part, is your cholesterol markers. Now LDL, again, in a really good spot. HDL, we see down a little bit, below ideally where we need it to be. And this is where I want to make sure over the next few weeks before we go back on cycle, before we get stuck into prep, which is going to come around very, very quickly. It's around 6 weeks until we start into this prep. That's something we're going to make an effort to try and get right back up. Ultimately, it degradates a little bit once we're on cycle and we're using things like testosterone, which tends to keep it in that little bit of a lower end. But what we can do is look to put in some of our supplementation now as well. So definitely higher strength omega-3s. All right, guys, so meal one going down. Pretty much the same thing every single day. That's bodybuilding, game of consistency. I like to have a couple of meals before I train, and I train around and about 11 o'clock most days. So first meal is a little bit on the heavier side. So I've got 140 grams there of oats, 50 grams of whey, 100 grams of blueberries, 20 grams of dark chocolate. I'll take 20 IUs of Lantus as well before my first meal. And then about an hour before a train, I'd have something that'll be not a full meal, it'll be something you'll see anyways, a little bit more just carbohydrate going in there alongside an intra-workout drink as well. So I like to have those 2 meals in, especially before I train legs. I don't like going into it empty, but I don't like going into it feeling absolutely stuffed either. So that's why I prefer training that little bit earlier in the morning. So that is check-ins are all boxed off now. First meal in, and then also gasp for having a Black Friday sale, so treated myself to a few bits, probably more than I should have there. But yeah, on the route to the gym now for I've been sitting having my pre-workout meal in there, so I had a banana and a muffin there and some cyclic dextrin, 50 grams in my inter-workout. Today's leg session, it's one of them that's been hanging over for me for a while. My knees have caused me major issues, particularly every single off season, so I've sort of let my quads settle for a couple of weeks here, so I'm going back in with a bit of a new plan of attack here. A little bit more accuracy with everything is the plan, and then a lot more warming up. So I'm going to take my time, spend 20-30 minutes warming up for this as well, and then I'll talk you through the session as I go. So pre-workout meal was down. I like something that's quite low in terms of volume before a train, something that's still fairly high in carbs, a little bit of fat in. I don't tend to have too much protein before training. Again, I find it can upset my stomach, and that's just through experience of doing this for a long time as well. But that's why I like a muffin. Easy in, decent amount of calories, let it sit half an hour, 40 minutes, and then get cracking. Now, today's session, as I say, for lower body is going to be a little bit different. I've experimented with every style of training, which way and under the sun. Been to numerous physios as to what's going on with these boys, and basically it's tendinopathy, but it's fairly far advanced tendinopathy that came before I even started bodybuilding. So that's the frustration of that. So what I see today is a lot of slower eccentrics. In terms of my actual overall volume, I played about with it. I'm going to just see how I feel with it. I've went between supersets, higher rep stuff, but today we're going to find out where we kind of should be with it and start at a lower set point and then be able to build that volume back up from there. You'll see a lot of the rep ranges tend to be kind of 15 to 30 reps, so there's nothing crazy heavy anymore, which I enjoy doing, but it really wasn't working for me, so I'm looking forward to getting started on this one today. I'm going to talk you through my new quad-focused lower body day. I've had a lot of issues with my knees over the past few years, and coming out the back end of prep, they've really started kicking up again. So this is a complete kind of revival and a renewal of my training style. Really, I'm looking at accuracy here and a lot of intent. A lot of the weight's been scaled back a little bit. The volume's been slightly lower, and today's about really just creating a bit of a baseline for me to move forward from and assess where the knee pain's at. So essentially what I'm going to do is I start with a single leg extension. I do 3 sets here. Again, I'm taking everything to failure, but what you'll see is a lot of control, a very slow eccentric, and a slight pause, both in the lengthened and shortened range. I then move on to adductors. For me, this is an area that I can kind of fill the gap of my legs. Really, if I struggle to get a sweep on my quad because I cannot get into lengthened ranges without causing knee pain. So in my opinion, if I can fill that gap from the inside out, then obviously it makes that quad look thicker. So 3 sets there in around 15 to 20 reps before moving on to leg extensions. Again, you can see in this the intent behind the movement. So certainly not kicking that movement out from the bottom, very much thinking about that muscle pulling and shortening that quad as much as possible. 3 sets here, anything really between 10 and 20 reps. And again, this is something I can build from over the next few weeks. I then move on to a 45-degree leg press. Again, this is something I could maybe load 7, 8, 9 plates on and push it out. But what I've found is that this is what really would tend to aggravate my knee. So here I've got 4 plates on. I'm doing 2 sets in and around 10 to 20 reps again, but very much concentrating on very, very slowly coming down to that eccentric, a slight pause in the hole, and then a controlled contraction out of there rather than simply just firing it up, and also trying not to fully lock my knees out to keep as much tension on the muscle as possible. I then move on to my first lengthened range movement on a hack squat. And I'm kind of testing this out today to see how the knees feel. And this movement felt very, very good. Again, not a huge amount of load on it. I think it's 3-4 plates aside on it, one set. But again, as you can see, loads of control in the eccentric, a slight pause at the bottom of the movement, and then thinking about contracting my quads out of the hole. And again, not fully locking out. So just one set here. So my plan over the next few weeks is, rather than adding lots of load, is add more reps or potentially add more sets, and then ending with one set of single leg press. Again, thinking about really driving my foot up the pad and putting as much tension to the quad and getting as deep as possible. Finishing off really with some lying hamstring curls. I have a full sort of ham and glute day, but I like to have a little bit of hamstring in the back end of a quad session just to top it up a little bit. 2 sets here. I like the lying hamstring curl. I also like to seat it, but this was just my preference for the day, before finishing off with 3 sets of calf raises. Again here, much like the rest of the session, it's just about intent and control on it. And that is now going to be my quad session, which I'm going to be running for the next few weeks.
I kept asking for a large black
The
So leg session wrapped up, and I have to say that I thought that was a very big success today. It's definitely the least pain in the knees that I've felt during a session, and my knees weren't 100% going into it either. And today, like I talked about in the video, sort of the talk through, like today was more about creating a baseline and something for me to build from, because honestly for a while there I was just batting my head against the wall thinking, like, how am I going to get these legs up, where I have a lot more optimism now with it. Like, there's no crazy weight lifted, but the big thing for me today was about trying to go in with intent behind every exercise, with like massively increased accuracy. And I would say I am a good trainer as well normally, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with, if you're fairly accurate with stuff, your intent is there, your intensity is there, and you're growing, roll with it. But my knees were the main concern, the main issue with it, and my legs weren't growing to the maximal capabilities in which they could do. So something had to change. Otherwise, that is the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So that was the plan today. Very happy with it. Didn't come out feeling like absolutely trashed, but enough to know that my quads have been well worked and there's a stimulus there. Then I went for my post-workout meal. Now normally I'd come back and I'd have more of like a carbohydrate heavy meal there, but I just wanted it out of the house and I wanted a wee match of tea because it's Christmassy. It's feeling Christmassy. So I wanted a wee match of tea there. So went and just had 200 grams of chicken and a bagel, and then I will have my next meal, which will be like 6 Weetabix, which will show you whey protein. There's nothing fancy with it, like exactly the same sort of thing most days, except just switching those 2 meals around just to eat out. I obviously had access to that there as well. It's now 2:30, and I'll do another couple of hours of a work block now. So plan is I'll respond to some of the check-ins that I made this morning. I then have another couple to do, and I have a client set up, and that should take me through to around probably 5 o'clock, and then I'll just be able to wind down. You get, again, as an online coach, you're never really off. You'll still get messages through in the evening, which you'll always reply to up to a certain point, usually up to 8 o'clock at night, but that's kind of how my day works out. So the rest of the day is more about getting foot in, doing a little bit of work, and then be chilling out this evening. So here we have meal number 4. I say this would normally be meal number 3 post-workout, but just the way it worked out today, let's change it around a little bit. So this was a prep staple. I'm on around 4,800 calories and I'm still fairly hungry. So this one is good for my food volume. Like, it's mad that 4,800 calories and I'm still hungry. It's a good sign. Last year my digestion was tanked. This year it feels very, very good. So, and I think that's just because a little bit less stress, eating the same meals the majority of the time as well, knowing what foods I can eat, what foods upset me. I think that structure very much helps as well. And a lot less processed foods, even though I had that muffin today. But yes, today, this one, 6 Weetabix, 50 grams of whey, 10 grams of dark chocolate, 100 grams of blueberries, 20 grams of honey, and I'm going to have a look at Z Sport with this just for the extra little bit of carbohydrate in there as well, and hydration. I didn't mention earlier is like my fluid intake. So I tend to drink around 6 litres of water or fluids per day, and I'll salt my meals, a gram to a gram and a half of salt, depending on how much I've sort of sweat it, especially with a leg session. I'll tend to hydrate a little bit more for recovery purposes as well, because obviously a little bit more output on those sessions. So yeah, meal number 4, 2 meals to go tonight. 250 rice, 200 chicken, bit of salsa, boom. So just after 9 o'clock, last meal going in. It's got, same as meal 1 actually, it's 140 grams of oats, 20 grams of honey, 50 grams of blueberries, and 10 grams of dark chocolates with 50 grams of whey. I think I said that. So yeah, that is around 4,700 calories a day, over 300 grams of protein, 680 carb, and around 80 grams of fat. So a fair whack of food went in today. As I say, appetite's still very, very good. Like, I could still eat more and more, but obviously that's not the goal. It's not just eat as much as you can. and get as fat as quick as you can. You know, it's to slowly but surely build muscle. Like, I think sometimes we get so caught up in scale weight chasing rather than going, right, is performance driving up? Are we actually visually, clearly building muscle tissue rather than the expense of just chasing scale weight? Because ultimately, whatever goes on there has to come off at the back end of a prep. And, you know, you can only gain so much muscle in a period of time. You know, just because the scale weight's gone up doesn't necessarily mean you're gaining muscle. So, yeah. Good day. You know, it's just a very normal, basic day in the life of Neil Rennie in terms of the online coaching, in terms of the training as well. I like to try and be in bed by around 10 o'clock, maybe asleep by 10:30, and try and get these 8 hours now that are consistently happening. It's took me 8 weeks to recover sleep post-prep, and, you know, it's something that was so challenging during the prep itself, but it's always the way for me, and it does take a long time to get that recovery, but now starting to finally feel like that is actually back to like where it needs to be and where it should be. Because if you can't sleep, you're not training as well. Everything's just that much more challenging and cognitively not quite as on. So I know it's a big difference from that. But yeah, all in all, solid day. Tomorrow is a push day, and that's always a good session. Knees seem to have held up pretty well after that session today. So some massive positives as well.